Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of FinServ Tech Oracles. I'm Johna Till Johnson, here with my oracular colleague, Jerry Murphy, to share our thoughts on technology for financial services firms. That's right, oracular. For this episode, Jerry, you wanted to discuss Bitcoin. Actually, in all fairness, you've been wanting to discuss Bitcoin for every episode since the show started, so here we go.
Well, and I guess it's sort of finally topical, right? I mean, recently, there's been hype on it over like the last 10 years. It's just kind of become hot recently because, there's a recent announcement where BlackRock is investing over $10 billion in Bitcoin. It's got new highs where it's been really beaten down for the last year or so. So I thought it was timely to get back into why do people care about it and why should we care about it and what should we worry about.
So I guess the first question is exactly that. Is Bitcoin something to embrace like BlackRock did or to avoid, and why?
Well, my feeling is if we remember about the underpinnings of technology, I think the underpinnings of the technology are absolutely here to stay. So if you think about Bitcoin is a quick reminder, right? It's a virtual currency. There's a bunch of them out there. That's the most popular one. There's Ethereum, Dogecoin or Dogecoin. There's a bunch of them, right? But without talking about specific virtual currencies, the technology that makes that stuff work is actually important, and it is not just needed for virtual currencies, but can be used in other things as well. So there's something that's called a distributed ledger, which is something that basically says the asset and identification of this item travels with the item. You think about it, you get $1 from a bank and somebody puts a debit or credit onto your account. This is one that basically the ledger travels with the currency. And then there's also a blockchain, which is an underpinning of that. So there's particular parts of technology that can be used not just for Bitcoin, but they can be used for other things as well. So I think that technology itself is really good. You can do real-time money clearing, document certification. So there's really good things you can use it for. But as far as the currencies themselves, I personally am still one of these people that are in the camp of it's really highly speculative, and I think it will be for quite some time.
Well, I want to come back to that, but before we go further, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a wild card. You're also an expert in DLP, and I am wondering, are you saying here that you could use distributed ledger and or blockchain as the world's best DLP?
Well, that's an actually interesting point. I think for it, you could, but the challenge with it, if you were going to use it for DLP, so that anything that isn't certified, is something to call into question or can track where things are going. So to that point, yes. I think, though, to use it ubiquitously across everything in my infrastructure, that there's some pretty heavyweight overhead that goes on in terms of data overhead and network overhead that I think if you were going to use it for everything, that might be computationally and bandwidth expensive to do it for everything. But would it obviate the need for DLP? Possibly, but it might be more expensive to use it ubiquitously.
But so getting back to Bitcoin, I mean, if BlackRock is making a huge investment, I think the thinking goes, well, they're smarter than the rest of us. So should we all be making investments? Like when I'm going through the airport and I see a little Bitcoin ATM, should I be buying Bitcoin?
Well, my feeling on it is it's not going away. I mean, there's a couple questions there. I think one is it here to stay? I think these virtual currencies probably are. Are they going to go to the point where they're actually replacing, U.S. federal currency? I'm more suspect of that being something happen, if for no other reason that federal governments all across the world are going to want to control their currencies, and what they may do is use that technology for their own currencies before they're going to say, okay, the currency for the world is not the dollar, it's Bitcoin. I'm much more skeptical of that.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think it's very interesting with a lot of these. You know, you and I have been around long enough to remember these technologies coming out. With every new technology, there's always an idealistic viewpoint when it comes to geopolitics. Like I remember back in the day when the internet first came out, people were saying, "Well, this is going to really level the power differential between, media and the common man." And to a certain extent it did, but what they missed, of course, was the dark side of that, which was, the common man issuing lots and lots of disinformation or bots or anything else like that. So as with Bitcoin, I think they say there's a body of thought that says Bitcoin will break us all free from the control of tyrannical governments. And first of all, I think the people that control Bitcoin are going to be just as bad or worse. And second of all, just what you said, governments aren't going to sit still for this.
Well, think about it like this too, right? Are Citibank and J.P. Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs going to allow themselves to become non-entities because all the things that they do in facilitating the movement of capital around the world is not needed anymore because of things like Bitcoin? That's not going to happen. What's going to happen is those guys, when they see it affecting them, are going to use distributed ledger for doing uh, real-time cash resolution on
Transactions, yeah,
stock
yeah,
trade, right? So
yeah.
they're going to use that technology to make their stuff go
And
from days to hours to
and
instantaneously.
and they already are. I mean, I
Yeah,
think it's no deep dark secret that JP Morgan has been using blockchain for years in the back office. And in fact, another little known application of blockchain is that you can use it to integrate disparate systems and deal with your technical debt. And that's in fact one of the purposes they're using it for. You can link a whole bunch of machines together and have them do what they need to do without having to re-engineer everything. So Jerry, it sounds like what you're really saying is blockchain, distributed ledger, definitely useful tools. Explore them as internal mechanisms, possibly as applications for DLP. Bitcoin, invest at your own risk. It's here to stay,
well,
but it's not going to take over the world the way it's
and I
promoted
would
to
say,
today.
and I would end that, John, by saying I'm not looking at it like an investment. I honestly think it's more like going to a casino gambling. It's like there are people who are good at gambling, but most people are going to lose their mortgage money than they are going to get enough money to buy another house.
Well, and in general, currency trading is very risky unless you understand the underlying dynamics. I had one foray into currency trading and it ended badly. Fortunately, it wasn't very much money. But
Yeah,
so just on broad principles, unless you absolutely know what you're doing as a currency trader, I
yeah.
wouldn't go play with Bitcoin as an investment. If you want to take a tiny percentage of your portfolio and throw it at Bitcoin, sure, whatever. I mean, you can gamble too. People do. I don't know
That's
why.
the thing is,
People do.
use your spare change to do it. Don't use your mortgage for it.
Exactly. Well, on that note, thank you very much, Jerry. And for everyone else, please tune in next week at 0900 for the next episode of FinServ Tech Oracles, right before the markets open on Tuesdays. Thank you.
That's wisely.